Hello and welcome to another edition of Solutions 360 ClearTalk. I'm Brad Malone, Vice President of Consulting for Solutions 360. With me is Bradford Dempsey, CEO of Solutions 360. So we're often affectionately known as the Brad Show, so hopefully you'll enjoy that. So Bradford, today I want to talk about transparency of information. When we look at Q360, it's an incredible repository of data, which can then be used to create information, which I'll say can be shared, and then people use that to make decisions. How do you see that as, like, I'll just say your mindset, given kind of you're the brain behind the tool. What did you envision when it comes to providing transparent information to employees in an organization?
Well, that's a great question. It's also a very contentious subject. When we talk to business owners about sharing, especially financial information, there's a lot of misunderstanding about the level and the detail you share. But I think the most important factor is you can't share information without providing education first. And I think that's probably the biggest missing piece. If people don't understand what they're seeing and what they can do with it, it gets misinterpreted. And when it's misinterpreted, it becomes rumor and it becomes a problem.
Exactly. I mean, how could a project manager run the cost and profit of a project if they don't understand it and if they don't see it? So how much training do you often see to educate people to really understand what that metric is or what that information is, and then also how to use it?
Well, I see the full gamut. We have, one customer who I think is kind of the pinnacle of what that education should be. And they actually have a very formal program, not only for branch managers and for all of their operations management, but they have a full education program for every employee of the company. And they essentially have an open book company, which is very unusual, but they're very, very successful at doing it.
Well, and I think it's also they use information as knowledge versus information as judgment. Given the ones that, we have that as the pinnacle, what do you think of the others? How are they missing, or where else should they train their people in terms of that information?
Great question, because I think they're missing it on different levels. So let's start with operations and being able to just actually effectively do my function. When you're missing the right information, you're quite often misleading your customers. You're not making the right decisions. You're not making the most profitable decisions within the organization. When you have misleading information or a lack of information, it could be about probably one of the most contentious subjects, which is, what does labor cost? Right. And, we teach very effectively for our customers to use proper labor burden, understanding what it truly costs you to have an employee. Now, unfortunately, a lot of employees don't understand that. What they see is the rate they're being charged out at. So if you know what you're being made, what you're making as a salary versus what you're being charged out at, and you think, well, that difference is just going into the pockets of the company, it's that misunderstanding which can create a lot of tension within an organization and reduce effectiveness.
Exactly. And again, you bring up profit and burden and all those conversations. What are the minimum metrics that you see are essential to a profit-based, labor-based company?
Well, I think the most important place to start is understanding gross profit, gross margin, and how that relates to your fixed overhead, because that essentially is the survivability of the company. Your gross profit across your portfolio of work, whether it be service contracts, projects, et cetera, has to cover your fixed overhead. Otherwise, you lose money and you go out of business. So I think that's the most fundamental thing that people need to understand, is that contribution effect that gross profit has towards fixed overhead and the survivability of the company.
Right. And I'll agree wholeheartedly. I mean, I'm in many, many meetings where we talk about gross profit and they're like, oh, yes, it's huge. And it's like, well, what's your burden rate? Oh, what's that? And then will it all go into an overhead? So people use these terms. I think they nod their head as you and I are both nodding, but does the executive table really understand what they are, how to measure them, and do they do it together? When they do it together or when they don't do it together, how does that impact an organization?
Well, the visibility creates efficiency. As you know, for accountability and for access to information, you're able to make better decisions consistently across the company. So if you're measuring gross profit the same way across your portfolio of projects, if you're measuring it the same way across your departments, if everybody in those departments understands what constitutes your cost and what creates that gross profit, they're all playing off the same song sheet. They're able to row the boat together. As we've used those kind of, metaphors before.
And I think key is, and what you're also saying is that it's at that employee base, not just at the leadership table, but are we really training people at the lowest level of the organization to make decisions that impact the company's goals based on that shared information?
Yeah. And let's add to that understanding we have a common vision, and profitability is not a dirty word. Profitability allows an organization to create opportunity for all the employees. It allows that organization to have stability, to have resiliency, to weather the storm when we have things like COVID and different impacts happen. You want to work for a profitable company because a profitable company offers you those opportunities, and it's stable and provides a great environment.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing, Bradford.
My pleasure. Great seeing you again.
Thanks.